Hi there, and welcome back to You Are the Compass. We are setting our headings today to connect with John from Millennium, who is currently in Thailand. This evening, we will dive into a story, a personal journey of what it truly means to sail your own course in life, and where that constant inspiration stems from to continue to grow. Our coordinates are set. We have arrived. John of the Millennium has joined us. Over.
Well, good morning, Jess. Well, it's good evening over there, but it's good morning here. Another day in paradise. What a beautiful day it is. Waters are calm. And yeah, what a good time to be alive. It's a very exciting time at present, what's happening in the world, what's happening all around the world. But we've got to be careful we don't get too sucked in to all the noise out there and find our true course and our true path. Thank you, Jesse, for allowing me on this show.
Thank you for joining us again. And I guess where we're leading with this episode is I wanted to introduce our audience and our listeners to you and what you do and how you've got to where you've are throughout the last 30 years and what that means to start off in one direction in life, in one career path, and end up somewhere totally different.
Wow, where do we start? Yeah. Well, first of all, I got to thank my parents for having me. That's probably the best start. For me to learn lots of lessons in this life. And a lot of people don't realise that we've come here to learn certain lessons. And a lot of people don't get those lessons until they get hit with a 4B2 across the back of the head. Or in other words, they have a big wake-up call to find out what they've got to learn and who they are. Sometimes those wake-up calls can come in many different guises, many different ways. So it could be a relationship breakdown. It could be an accident, sometimes a horrific accident. It also could be an illness or a disease that gives us the wake-up call. Most of us out there, except probably your enlightened listeners that come to listen to this, are on a bit of a journey where the outside world is dictating who they should be or what they should be, or they're very easily conditioned by the outside world. But what we really need to get to is who are we? Who is our real self? Who is our true divine self? And that's a journey. That's a big journey. The best way to get there is through meditation, to find that journey of who you are.
Would you say
Anyway,
that
a little bit about myself.
Would you say that you would you say that you had a wake-up call, or that you came into this world and you were just enlightened from the get-go?
No, I came into this world very sensitive, I suppose is the best word, from the get-go. And to me, I didn't fit in. Yeah, I wouldn't say I was enlightened from the get-go. No, just had a lot of trouble fitting in because I would sense and feel things that I didn't understand. And very sensitive around people, emotions, around different energies. Yeah, so but I didn't like that part of me, that sensitive part of me, at a very early life. So I found in my teenage years, I found alcohol and fast bikes, big motorcycles, and karate was one way of, how would you call it? Well, one way of becoming insensitive or cold or distancing myself from my feelings. So that was an interesting journey, except the karate side ended up teaching you a lot of spiritual lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey, for want of a better word, I won't say spiritual, I'll say raising one's consciousness. That's probably a better way, because when we talk spiritual, people think light and fluffy and just be good to everybody. No, that's not being spiritual. Raising one's consciousness or being spiritual is being your true divine self, whoever that is. You could be the world's best scientist. You could be a fantastic street cleaner. You could be the world's best bank robber. It doesn't matter, as long as you are your true divine self.
Well, yes, I think law enforcement would have a few choice words for the bank robber.
Yes. But this is the journey, and people don't realise they try to form to other people's expectations and needs. Anyway, back a little bit to myself. In the early days, I was an aircraft engineer, worked for an airline company, but it was basically there following rules, regulations, and you had to have some good engineering skills, which I was taught some fantastic engineering skills, becoming a ground engineer for an airline. And those skills also helped me all through the life, but it wasn't being my true self. I couldn't express my creative side because it was all less follow rules, regulations, procedures, and that's the way it was all done. So a very logical, mechanical world that was. Anyway, from there I made a decision. I want to go sailing. I want to build a boat. Didn't have any money at the time. So I went across, basically travelled across the desert and to the other side of Australia, and I got a job as a race car mechanic. Absolutely loved that. And I could be very creative in my ways that I did things and build a beautiful performance. It was like the V8 touring cars back then. So very powerful cars these were. Yeah, one of the best jobs of my life. I could start to be myself, who I really was. Anyway, after that, the journey took me to building a boat. It took 5.5 years of building, earning money, working, building a boat. I went travelling through the Pacific, over to New Zealand, sailed over there, was working over there, and then went sailing further north into the Pacific to Vanuatu, New Caledonia, and then back to Australia. I got back to Australia and, well, to cut a long story short, registered my motorbike again. As you understand, I love motorbikes, big bikes. Registered my motorbike, and 2 hours later, after registering the bike, I had a head-on collision on the open highway with a car that turned in front of me. So
you had your first solo flight.
I left my body just before impact. Left my body. Saw my whole life in front of me. There was no such thing as time. Just seeing my whole life, childhood, teenage years, adult years, everything all at once. Very interesting experience. Never understood that for quite some time. Anyway, after a while, I came to, and I'm looking up at all these people looking down at me. In the middle of the road, and a bit of a crowd had gathered round. I tried to get up and realised I was a bit broken. So that was my first flying experience, but I didn't get the landing right.
The first solo flight, as I remember it.
Yes, and after that, the ambulance finally came. They put the gas on me to get rid of the pain, to relieve the pain, and off I was to the hospital. Anyway, I was on crutches for a while, hobbling around. 9 months later, I had to have the plate removed from my broken leg as it mended and healed. Anyway, I was only supposed to be in hospital for 3-4 days. 3 weeks later, I'm still in hospital. A lot had happened then. There were problems with the first operation, and I had to go back under anaesthetic again. And that's where I actually died on the operating table and went to meet my maker. Well, as you can see, I survived that one. I came back again. But having seen a different dimension to this physical plane, it's not like dreaming, it's not like drugs. It was going to a completely different dimension. Wow, how big, how huge that dimension is. And that gave me a beautiful understanding there is more to life than this physical dimension plane. Yeah, so it was a near-death experience that I had.
And I guess,
And
like,
from
we
that,
as a society are not all going to have that chance, that wake up call to be in that other dimension either.
well, I won't put it as a chance. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody.
Well, not a chance,
No,
but you know what I mean.
yeah, it's not the best way, but I wasn't learning my lessons. There was lots of lessons I had to learn there, and I wasn't learning my lessons. One was patience. I got signed into the hospital as a patient, and 3 weeks later, have you learned patience yet, John? No, not as yet. So while I was in the hospital there, right, I died on the operating table and came back. Again, I got a horrific infection called golden staph. And also, while I was in there, I had sold my boat previously and put all the money in the stock market, and the stock market crashed.
Oh dear.
So here I am with my leg up in the air 3 weeks later, and I just said, wow, things can't get any worse. It's got to start getting better. And it did. One of the other lessons that I was learning, and well, I suppose you could say I wasn't learning before, was raising one's consciousness, the spiritual side of life, the intuitive side of life. So this was a big wake-up call to start looking into that area. And that's what I did. I started looking very deeply into, well, first off, ways to heal myself, ways to get back together. One of the amazing people I first came across was a local GP there who did acupuncture as well. And that started turning around the healing process. Acupuncture. I was pretty amazed. He was more than a doctor. He was a healer. Yes. So there are some amazing people out there. But it pushed me further on my journey for more understanding, more healing. So I did many courses for healing, many therapies, and I came across kinesiology. Now, the dictionary meaning of kinesiology is the study of movement of muscles. But this course in kinesiology was like a truth detector, a lie detector. You could ask the body any questions you want, and you can get an answer back from the body, not from the mind, not from the conscious mind. You get the answer from the body. So you can tap very deeply into people and find out what's really going on. Now, psychology is fantastic, but it has its limits. Quite often you go to a psychologist, you ask them, they ask you, what's on your mind? What's your problem? What's happening? So you start talking about what you think is the priority thing.
It's like you're telling yourself the story before you're telling them, and you've got your own preconceptions of what the eventual goal is to get out of that session with them. Whereas kinesiology, as I understand it, you don't really have access to your mind in the sense that it's all to do with your body, and your body will give those telltale signs as to what's wrong.
Yes, your body taps into your subconscious
Mm-hmm.
and higher conscious levels. And that's where it starts to get a little bit in the woo-woo stuff, where many logical people can't get their head around this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just like a lie detector. You ask the body questions and it gives you a yes-no answer. And from that, with a little bit of intuition, you can formulate an amazing perspective of what's happening with that person's life. So we're able to go very deeply into the subconscious, into the past, and find out where these traumas are, where these problems lie, which you can't just get by speaking them. And I work on a priority system. What's the priority incident, trauma, whatever that should be dealt with first? Instead of asking, what do you think the problem is? Right, we go to the priority. And you've got to work on the priority first. It's a bit like going to get your car fixed and you've got a flat tyre. And the guy says, oh, well, we better change the spark plugs and tune the motor up. No. Well, first, the biggest thing is to fix that flat tyre.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you've got to work on priorities with the body. And quite often with illness and disease, it's your body letting you know there is a problem there. And not always, but quite often, it's a trauma, it's a psychological, it's an emotional problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I had to do a lot of work on myself to understand this and start the healing side. And from then on, it started an incredible journey in my life. And it all happened from really a big turnaround with that accident. Yeah, it gave me a big understanding. Have I learned everything there is to learn? No, I've still got more lessons to learn. And this is the journey of life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at these lessons, these problems as an opportunity, it can really expand your life, your world, your emotional well-being. That doesn't mean to say you're just up there with the gods, you're on a high for the rest of your life. No, we've got to have the highs and the lows. Otherwise, if we're on a high all the time, we just experience what it is like to be up there and it becomes the norm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to a job, same, every day. Whether you're a production worker or what, if that job is boring, same every day, you're not learning and growing. So sometimes we need little lows, little hiccups in our lives, little trips to experience the lows, and then we know what it's like to be high.
It's like if we experience the lows, we can appreciate more when we get the highs.
Yeah. And I very rarely get sick. And I got a bit fluey, got a bit of a cold. And I'm going, oh, wow, this is unusual. Is this what it is like to feel sick? So when you feel sick, you realise, I feel bad, don't feel like doing anything, lethargic, not feel like going to work, whatever the sickness is. But also it's a lesson as well to deal with something. And then when you're well again, wow, it feels so good. So kinesiology, mind-body healing, trauma releasing, is a bit like taking a weight off your shoulders. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and moving to a lighter, higher levels of consciousness. And it's just pretty simply releasing a lot of traumas, skeletons in the closet of the past. So that put me on a beautiful journey up till now.
And from when you got out of the hospital and you were in recovery, where did you go to from there? Like, where does Millennium come from?
All right. I'd sold my previous boat, my yacht, and I planned building a newer, bigger, faster yacht. But actually, I bit off more than what I could chew. The first boat took 5.5 years to build. And that was, I knew nothing about boats, nothing about sailing.
And you built that yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, built it all by myself.
Yeah.
On the odd occasion, a friend might come over and give me a little bit of a hand for a day. But most of the time, it was building myself. Sometimes I was just sitting there trying to visualise what it was like at sea. What do I need to build or make or do? Yeah, I had a set of plans I had to work off. But I like to put my own creative side on a lot of things. So it took a lot to understand not being a sailor, how to build a boat. And so that was a long process. I tell everybody I was working 12 hours a day, 8 days a week.
I guess the engineering side of it from, working for the airline would be come into it as well?
Well, that worked out well for because I had to rebuild. A guy gave me an old diesel motor, and I had to fully rebuild that. That engineering side, that was good. But there were all new skills I had to learn. Fiberglassing, that was a big job. A lot of timber work, that had to be worked out too. So I had pretty basic tools to start off with to build that boat. But 5.5 years later, it's happened. Then I had to learn sailing, learn how to sail. So here I am on the water with a 45-foot boat, 13 point something meters. So I had to learn sailing. So every time I went out sailing, I had an expert along with me because I didn't feel I had the knowledge yet to learn sailing. So after 3 months, I did my first sailing trip. So it was a learning curve to get up to that 3 months learning curve of how to sail, learning the weather systems, learning the tides, the ocean, how to set sails. That was a huge learning curve. And then went on a venture to the islands, went over sailed over to New Zealand and sailed that boat for 3 years. And it was a big learning curve. Yeah, now this is all before I had that accident. So that put me on a bit of a different journey after the accident because I'd sold the boat. And I had planned building another boat before the accident. I planned to sell this one and build another boat. So when the stock market crashed, all of a sudden I realised, wow, I haven't got enough money to build a boat. Yeah, so it was back on the tools again, earn a living, get some money coming in, and at the same time, or not the same time, also building a boat. But there was a big difference this time. I decided to have one day off a week. It was just a refresh day, do something completely different, not work-based or anything, one day off a week. And that gives you such a beautiful inspiration to keep going with it. And the ideas come in. And at the same time, I was doing meditation. And now I tell everybody I've been meditating for over 30 years. But I'm still practicing meditation. I go to Buddhist monks to learn meditation. Meditation is the backbone of life. It is. And if you're not meditating, well, there's many different ways to meditate, put it that way, many different ways. But to do a very present meditation where you're not focusing on your goals, your desires, or your achievements, where you're just being very present and focusing on your breathing, that's so important. Yeah, to be able to do that. It gives you the downloads, the inspiration, makes your days coordinate and gel together a lot better so you can go much further forward in your life. So there's a lot in the Buddhist religion about meditation there. And for anyone who's listening out there who hasn't done meditation, I recommend it's worthwhile getting into the meditation side of life. A couple of people have tried it and said, wow, I can't stop thinking. My mind just keeps going 10 to the dozen. Well, guess what? That's when you really need it. When things are going wrong. Now, I haven't got time to meditate. I'm so busy. That's when you need meditation the most. Meditation is just basically being present and focusing on your breath. If your mind starts to wander off, answering phone calls, imaginary phone calls or whatever, bring your focus back to your breath. You cannot take a future breath and you cannot get back a past breath. You can only focus on the present breath.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realise that. Yeah, there's many meditations you can find in many areas. Just look on YouTube, wherever. There's many talented and gifted people out there that are willing to share their knowledge to teach you meditation or for you to learn meditation. Yeah, so then thus became the journey of building the next boat after that. Yeah.
That's Millennium that you're currently on.
Yeah, but I think that might take another podcast to tell you more about that journey.
Another chat to tell us where the name Millennium comes from. We could do that.
Yes. Okay, then. That would be great, Jess.
Okay, great.
Wow.
Well, thank you for joining us again, John, and giving us a little bit more of an insight. I feel like we met up and started chatting, and we didn't really give people the chance to get to know you a little bit more. So that was nice to have that initial story.
Thank you, Jess. Always great chatting with you. You have a great day.
And you
Bye.
too. Bye. Thank you for joining us from wherever in the world you have your own compasses set to today. We have only just begun with John's story, who gave us an insight on where it all started for him, with his own journey of healing, self discovery, and his passion to help others. We will reconnect again to unpack the thought of how doing what you love keeps you present in this moment. It allows you to heal and grow past the hardships and fuels the motivation needed for your future self to be that bit better.